수 없을 것이며 결국 죽음이라는 운명을 맞이하게 될 것이다.
How hard is it for a North Korean soldier to defect to the south? First, they've got to slip out in the dead of night when everyone else is deep asleep. Then comes a mad dash to a hidden ventilation shaft where they've stashed a handmade map and compass. From there, it's a crawl out to the military border on the edge of the base. Next stop, a secret tunnel. They burrow through, cross the inner fence, and start crawling, hugging the ground to dodge spotlights, following the compass straight south toward the DMZ. At the edge of the no man's land, they'll use the hand-drawn map to dodge landmines carefully mapped out during the day and inch closer to the southern border. If they make it through the minefield alive, they're finally in South Korea. But for Gyunam, that minefield was a nightmare that stretched on for months and still wasn't fully mapped. The border might be just a stone's throw away. But one wrong step and boom, just like the wild boar that accidentally wandered in and got blown to bits. And here's the kicker, every night, Gyunam had to sprint back to the barracks before roll call. If he didn't make it, his absence would be discovered. The world knows, North and South Korea were once one country, split by ideology and war. And in the North, defectors aren't just punished, they're made into bloody warnings for everyone else. Gyunam had served in the army for 10 long years. He knew exactly what failure meant. As a kid, Gyunam had a happy family. Not rich, but full of love. He grew up obsessed with the idea of freedom. He wanted to be an explorer. But tragedy struck. After his father's sudden death, the family fell into hard times, and Gyunam joined the military to survive. 10 years of service kept him away from home, and he missed his mother's final days. With no family left, Gyunam was ready to obey whatever orders came next until one strange encounter shook his world. A wild boar had wandered into the minefield. Its body became a rare feast for Gyunam's squad. Over roasted pork, someone casually asked what Gyunam would do after retirement. The question hit hard. Reality was cruel, and his future was blank. Still, that wasn't enough to make him defect until they got caught. The higher-ups found out about the secret barbecue, but instead of punishing Gyunam, they did something worse. They took the pig and served it up for their own booze-fueled party. That kind of double standard where the elites could break rules without consequence disgusted Gyunam. 10 years of loyalty, no promotion, no future, just soul-crushing despair. That's when he finally decided to run. But to his surprise, someone had discovered his plan to defect.
남한으로 가실 거디요.
Turns out, Dong Hyuk had been watching Gyunam's secret movements every single night. With a storm approaching, Gyunam worried the rain would shift the landmines and ruin all his planning. He needed to move fast. Dong Hyuk guessed his plan and begged to come along. He wanted to reunite with family in the south. Gyunam snapped, warning him not to even think about it. Too dangerous. But fate doesn't care about fear. A patrol officer discovered the defector, and the unit was instantly mobilized to hunt him down. Gyunam had a bad feeling, so he rushed to check his stash spot, and sure enough, his worst fears were confirmed. Acting fast, Gyunam tracked down Dong Hyuk before the military could, but Dong Hyuk knew there was no turning back. Desperate, he pointed a gun at Gyunam, demanding the location of the tunnel.
오늘 밤 내가 준비한 길로 가자 말이다.
Gyunam tried to talk him down, and just as Dong Hyuk lowered his weapon, the search team showed up. Thinking fast, Gyunam tried to come up with a story, anything that could get him out of this mess, but his superiors didn't give him a chance to explain. Even though Dong Hyuk took full responsibility for the plan, the brass branded them both defectors and prepped them for a court-martial. News of the attempted defection shook the military and reached the Ministry of State Security. That's when a high-ranking officer entered the picture, one who'd end up being Gyunam's unexpected lifeline. After being cleaned up and dressed in a pristine new uniform, Gyunam was loaded into a ministry vehicle. They drove to a remote location, and there, out in the middle of nowhere, a man stepped toward the car.
야, gyunam아.
It was Major Hyunsang, a childhood acquaintance, but their lives couldn't have been more different. Hyunsang came from a powerful family, born with a silver spoon. He inherited his position at the State Security Department. Designer suits, luxury cars, it had always been his world. Gyunam's father? Just their family driver.
너 탈주했어?
But when Hyunsang handed Gyunam a dropped piece of candy, placing it directly in his mouth, it wasn't just a gesture, it was a reminder. Your father fed you with the scraps we gave him, and now I saved you, you owe me. Then came the real reason behind the rescue. Today was the grand banquet for the military's elite, and the commander of the prestigious 1st Division, Hyunsang's father-in-law. Hyunsang needed a hero for the stage, someone who could take credit for capturing a defector, so he twisted the story and made Gyunam the hero. delivering that glory to his powerful in-law.
공로가 있다면 그것은 뛰어난 선견지명을 가지신 사단장 동지의 가르침이 있었기 때문입니다.
모든 공로를 사단장 동지께 올리겠습니다.
At the lavish celebration, glasses clinked and laughter filled the air. Only Gyunam kept his eyes locked on the clock, because the storm was coming and if he wanted to escape North Korea for good, it had to be tonight. So Gyunam made a formal request to Hyunsang, asking to return to his old unit and officially check back in. But what happened next blindsided him. Taking matters into his own hands, Hyunsang unilaterally transferred the soon-to-retire Gyunam to his father-in-law's unit as his personal driver. The news hit Gyunam like a thunderclap. He was completely unprepared.
내 앞길을 왜 마음대로 정하십니까? 그럼 네 앞길을 네가 정하니?
But with Hyunsang holding all the power, Gyunam could only swallow his anger. Hyunsang didn't bother sugarcoating it. You'll just be doing grunt work after retirement anyway. Might as well just be a driver, it's better than whatever else you'd end up doing. And deep down, Gyunam knew if he pushed back, it'd be no different than trying to defect. So he played along, nodding in fake obedience. Then, under the pretense of returning to retrieve personal belongings from his former unit, he asked for some time, but Hyunsang was one step ahead. He had already gathered Gyunam's father's belongings and personally handed them over, delivering a harsh warning in the process.
같은 생각 말고 받아들여. 이게 네 운명이야.
Though the die had been cast, Gyunam's urge to defy his fate burned stronger than ever. He wasn't going to accept this fate. Not this time. Determined, he began laying the groundwork for a new plan. He sketched his own face from an official group photo, then forged a pass under his new title. He had already spotted the division commander's seal during his reassignment, so while the guards were slacking off, Gyunam slipped into the office and stamped the forged document. With everything in place, he was ready to bolt, but the area was swarming with guards. To scout a way out, he used his new official status to bluff the sentries. A quick survey made one thing clear: running was suicide. He'd need a smarter approach. Then inspiration hit. If he couldn't escape as a soldier, he'd slip out as a general's driver. So while Hyunsang was busy showing off his artistic skills to fellow officers, Gyunam helped a drunk officer into the back seat of a staff car. As expected, the guard saw a general in the back, snapped to attention, and waved him through without a second glance. Once clear, Gyunam dumped the drunken officer in a remote field to sleep it off. But just when it seemed like everything was going smoothly, trouble hit. He unexpectedly crossed paths with a military police patrol unit. Worse still, Gyunam hadn't realized he was almost out of gas. The car sputtered and died right in plain sight. And then, the one thing he dreaded most happened. The MP truck turned around. They pulled up. Suspicious, but Gyunam kept his cool, his nerves of steel kicking in once again. He calmly explained that he was on a classified mission, but his car had unexpectedly run out of gas. He asked the MPs if they could spare a little. Naturally, the officers immediately demanded to verify his identity. Luckily, Gyunam had the forged pass ready. Still, the whole situation raised red flags. Going out on a mission without a full tank? And alone? It didn't add up. The officer in charge picked up the radio and called the division for confirmation. After a tense pause, the reply came through: confirmation received. Gyunam had narrowly escaped disaster again. Afterward, the officer invited Gyunam to refuel near the prison, but once Gyunam learned the man was escorting a military deserter, a sly idea popped into his head. He posed as a secret agent from the security division.
포위부에서 나와서?
공조한 탈주범이 있다는 정보를 입수. 추가 색출을 위해 김동혁과 그자의 증거물 지도를 수거해 가야 하오.
With his cocky swagger and air of authority, the warden totally bought it. After all, security division guys were known for being mysterious and wielding serious power. Gyunam played the part perfectly. Not only did he reclaim the map he'd drawn earlier, but he also managed to rescue the imprisoned Dong Hyuk. But what he didn't count on was the warden's sharp eye. He noticed that the transfer order Gyunam had signed matched handwriting in some administrative notes. That raised suspicions. The warden volunteered to personally escort them just to be sure. On the road, the warden called the security division to confirm Gyunam's identity. Unfortunately, this time the call went straight to Hyunsang. Gyunam, still trying to keep up the act, realized the jig was nearly up, but he knew one thing: Hyunsang wouldn't want this mess to go public. Gyunam was his guy. Hyunsang had personally backed him. If anything happened to Gyunam, Hyunsang's reputation would take a serious blow. Though Gyunam managed to bluff his way through for the moment, the truth loomed large, so he decided to strike first. The problem? The warden wasn't stupid. He was already on high alert, making it tough for Gyunam to pull anything off. The two sides locked into a fierce struggle over the gun. Dong Hyuk tried to help, but with his hands tied, he couldn't do much. One wrong move and the enemy got the upper hand. A bullet from out of nowhere took out the driver. The truck spun out of control, flipping off the road and crashing hard. Gyunam dragged Dong Hyuk to safety, only to realize the ambush came from none other than Hyunsang and his man. Knowing exactly what Hyunsang was capable of, Gyunam hatched a risky plan. He smeared himself with the driver's blood to fake his own death. It worked. As the enemy approached to check on the bodies, Gyunam sprang up, bolted to recover his precious map, the key to their escape. Using the terrain to their advantage, the two dove into the river and slipped away for now, but the prison warden wasn't so lucky.
임규람이 탈주한 거 어디까지 보고 해서?
정신이 없어서 못했습니다. 잘못했습니다.
He picked up the call only to be met with a harsh scolding from his father-in-law. In response, he requested a full platoon to hunt down Gyunam and Dong Hyuk. Meanwhile, the fugitives stumbled upon a camp of displaced women refugees who had taken up arms after losing their homes. There were more like them out there than anyone realized, and while they unknowingly saved Gyunam, it only brought trouble to their doorstep. As the search team closed in, Gyunam and Dong Hyuk chose to reveal themselves. Risking exposure to protect the women, they bought the women some time, but with bullets flying everywhere, Dong Hyuk wasn't so lucky. Pinned down and running out of options, the two went into hiding. When Hyunsang heard one of them was injured, he ordered the troops to stop shooting. He wanted them alive. Just when all hope seemed lost, the refugees opened fire on the search team, drawing their attention away. Caught off guard by the sudden resistance, the commanding officer pulled back with his squad, giving Gyunam and Dong Hyuk a lucky break. In the end, the lead officer failed. No deserters caught, no refugees captured, leaving Hyunsang stewing in silent rage. But what really infuriated Hyunsang wasn't the failure, it was the fact that someone like Gyunam, a so-called lowlife, had dared to fight back against his fate. Because deep down, Hyunsang, the pampered noble, had dreams, two dreams of being a musician, but no matter what, he couldn't escape the chains of his inherited destiny. He poured all his bitterness into rage. If someone as noble as himself couldn't realize his dreams, there was no way he'd let a lowly soldier defy fate and chase his. After venting his fury, Hyunsang quickly regained his composure. One of the deserters was wounded. There was no way they'd escape his grasp. So he rushed back to Gyunam's original unit, border patrol, and launched a full military operation, ordering everyone to immediately search for and arrest the two fugitives.
탈주범이 둘씩이나 발생하였다.
His promise? Anyone who caught them dead or alive would be hailed as a hero. But little did he know, Gyunam and Dong Hyuk had already slipped into the mobilization meeting. Under cover of a pitch-black night, howling winds, and pouring rain, they went unnoticed. Still, Hyunsang wasn't easily fooled. He knew, to flee North Korea, they'd have to cross the border, so he decided to wait them out. Right at the edge, just as he predicted, he spotted Dong Hyuk, who was desperately searching for a necklace. Dong Hyuk had risked everything for a gift he wanted to give his mother, and that cost him his chance to escape. Cornered, he had no choice but to hand the necklace to Gyunam, begging him to carry it across the border and deliver it in his place. Because of the deep rift between North and South, defectors weren't just runaways, they were traitors. There would be no mercy if they were caught. And yet, that only made Gyunam more determined to show Hyunsang that his fate wasn't written in stone. In the darkness, Gyunam moved forward with only a compass to guide him. Every searchlight along the way, he took out with deadly precision. 10 years in the military had made him a sharpshooter, but each shot only fueled Hyunsang's obsession with winning. A few shots later, Gyunam was grazed by a bullet and his precious compass was shattered. Luckily, he still had a radio. It could pick up signals from the south. Following the faint signal, Gyunam sprinted through the night, eventually reaching the edge of the minefield. But what he saw crushed him. The heavy rain had washed away all his carefully placed markers. The map he risked everything to protect? now just a soggy, useless scrap of paper. At this point, he had only one option left: take the risk. If he died in the minefield, so be it. Maybe that was his fate after all. Hyunsang and his men caught up fast, opening fire the moment they arrived, but their assault only fueled Gyunam's desperate sprint. As grenades exploded around him, one by one they triggered hidden mines, ironically blasting open a path for his escape. Hyunsang, unwilling to admit defeat, charged into the minefield as well, but the moment one of his men stepped on a mine and was blown apart, it hit him. Maybe some people really are favored by fate. Meanwhile, Gyunam, battered and bloodied, finally reached the southern border patrol zone. He spotted a group of South Korean soldiers returning from patrol and rushed to call for help, only to hear a sickening click beneath his boot. He had stepped on a landmine. All he could do was watch helplessly as the soldiers disappeared into the distance. Then Hyunsang appeared. Gyunam's words cut deeper than any bullet.
서서 동지는 돌아가고 나는 갈 길 가봤습니다.
네가 길은 이쪽이야.
아니지, 이쪽입니다.
남쪽이라고 다 지상낙원일 것 같아. 출신 성분 보지 않고 너 하고 싶은 대로 다 하게 내버려둘 것 같냐 이 말이야. 세상에 그런 낙원은 없어.
해보고 싶은 걸 하다 실패하고 멋지지 않습니까? 여기서는 실패조차 할 수 없으니.
Hyunsang had once dreamed of more, but he chose to surrender to his role, convinced resistance was pointless. Gyunam, on the other hand, never believed in surrendering to destiny. If you never try, he said, you'll never know whether you could have won. He lifted his foot from the mine, and nothing happened. It didn't explode. In that moment, Hyunsang saw it with his own eyes. Fate wasn't always written. It could be challenged, but that reality was too cruel for him to accept. Why should Gyunam, born beneath him in every way, get to choose his path while he, with all his status and privilege, never could? And yet Gyunam had made a choice. He'd seized control of his life. With one final burst of strength, Gyunam dashed toward the south, the dream he'd risked everything for. He activated the defector emergency line and sent out a call for help. Just as he neared the entrance to freedom, Hyunsang came charging in again. They clashed briefly. For a moment, Hyunsang wavered, questioning everything, but clarity returned. He couldn't change his fate, but he could accept it. He could honor the mission that had defined him. Gyunam took a bullet. Wounded, he still crawled forward, dragging his leg, clawing toward freedom with every last ounce of will. Hyunsang watched, rifle in hand. He could have ended it with his aim. One shot would have done the job, but he didn't, because deep down, he wanted to see it, whether fate truly favored the bold.
가라. 가서 마음껏 실패하라.
서둘러 움직이면 쏜다. 지금 규칙은 유엔 군사합의를 명백히 위반하였다. 격발할 경우 즉각 대응하겠다.
And from that moment on, Gyunam's escape was no longer just his own victory. It was Hyunsang's final act of defiance to his silent, reluctant gift to the man who dared to challenge destiny.
개새끼.